bringing you the future today. This is Resetting Tomorrow. Tales from the frontiers of science, engineering, technology, and telecom.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Resetting Tomorrow. I'm your host, Hugo Malan, and today we're diving into the world of fiber optics and innovative solutions that are making a real difference in rural connectivity and beyond. Our special guest today is Kevin Baker, the Carrier Network Solutions Architect at Corning. Kevin is an engineer and the brilliant mind behind the Corning FlexNAP fiber optic cable system, which he designed back in 2004. The FlexNAP system is truly a story of innovation. It simplifies and speeds up the fiber installation process and reduces rework. And ultimately, it is creating broader access to fiber connectivity across the country with all the associated economic and social benefits. In today's episode, we'll talk about Kevin's background, about the development and the evolution of FlexNAP, both its current applications and its future potential. And we'll also discuss the power of collaboration in driving innovation and the importance of finding the right talent to make it all happen. So sit back, relax, and get ready to learn about the cutting-edge advancements in fiber optics. Kevin, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Can you tell us a bit about your background and how you got into the world of fiber optics?
Sure. So way back when I was in college, I received a bachelor's degree in mathematics. From there, just looking for different opportunities to get into a career that will utilize the mathematics degree. I applied at the time at 9X. I was brought on as a field technician, as a splicer. And at the time it was copper. And I worked there for a few years and then came into the engineering department. And then right around 2004 or so, Verizon made the decision to start deploying fiber. And that's where I really got into the fiber optic systems that we know now, delivering all the broadband to everybody.
What really sparked the idea for developing FlexNAP?
Oh, that was interesting. So in 2004, when the decision was made to deploy fiber optics across the territory, and at this time we're now Verizon, so quite a few households, we were the first larger company to actually do this. So we went out there and each individual region was designing slightly different based upon what we knew from our experience in copper. So, and as we went through the first year or so, Wall Street was not 100% happy with all the outlay of cash. So we realized we had to find ways to be more efficient with the deployment of the fiber and the splicing and even the installation of the circuits. So the idea of pre-connectorization came across, and that's how we first started with the single fiber pre-connectorization for the drops that go to the house. They plugged into the terminals. And then about a year later, after a lot of collaboration with Corning themselves, we came up with the FlexNAP system, where we actually would have spliced on tether tails with connectors that the terminals just plugged into. And what this does, it eliminates a lot of the splicing in the field. So that was able to drive down our overall costs for deploying fiber.
Got it. So just so that our audience understands, walk us through the world before pre-connectorization and then the concept of pre-connectorization and then finally the elegant FlexNAP solution.
So if you picture a normal non-connectorized solution at all, what you would do as a company is you would place bulk fiber. So you would get a big reel fiber and you would place it on the poles or in the underground systems through the ducts. And at every location you need a terminal, you would leave some sort of coil. And that can range anywhere from 5 feet to sometimes 50 feet or 100 feet, depending on where the splicing is done for that terminal. Very labor intensive, obviously, because now every place you need a terminal, you have to have a splice closure and you're opening up the sheath and pulling out the fibers you need and splicing and organizing it, making it all back to where it is workable. So if you bring in a semi pre-connectorization, your terminals will now have connectors on them. So you're still going to have splicing. You may not splice at every pole. Sometimes your terminals will have longer tails, and you'll bring 2, 3, 4 tails back to one location to consolidate the number of splice points. It's a cleaner work, but you have the longer tails, but you're still going to have less labor than splicing at every terminal. Now, if you introduce the FlexNAP system, every place you needed a splice in that first scenario for the terminals, you take the measurements, you put it into our system online, and we will take the exact same bulk cable that you purchase, and in our factory, we will splice those connector tails onto that cable. We clean them, we test them. It's done in a completely sterile room, so there's no issues with that. And then once we have all those terminals spliced for you, we put it onto a reel, we place it on top of the pallet, put it on a truck, and we deliver it to you. And then from there, you just deploy this fiber just like every other cable. You just start at one end, you place it, either lash it up, you put it through the rollers, you do it through the interduct, whatever you normally do, and you place it just like bulk cable. So we've now saved all those individual splice locations and the labor. We've done it for you in the factory.
That's remarkable. So can you estimate what is the time saving involved? Just a ballpark? It sounds like it's tremendous.
It's absolutely tremendous. So if you picture the whole concept of what I'll call a distribution area, a DA, if you take an average size suburbia one, you'll have probably 250, 300 houses that you'll serve if you're doing normal fiber to the home. If you assume 5 or so houses per terminal, you're looking at 50 locations that you're going to remove that were once a splice point. And if you picture probably 3 hours, sometimes more, sometimes 4, times that 50, you're saving weeks worth of work. The line work is still the same. It's still placing a cable. So that's going to be the same whether it's bulk cable or FlexNAP. But the advantage you have is as the line crew is placing the cable, they can actually just plug in your terminals. Just as they're going, unlash the tether, plug in the terminal, mount it on the pole or hang it from the strand, and go. That way you're not even bringing back a secondary technician to plug in that terminal. Now, as soon as you do the splice at the main cabinet where your splitters are or your main pickup point of the feeder, once that splice is done, you can basically self-service the next day.
So, big picture, if you step back, what has been the biggest benefit and impact of this to broadband access in the US?
Oh, the time savings is amazing. And it's not just, the time savings overall has a lot of facets to it. So again, one splice, which means you're saving all of that labor for the splice work. That one splice also means your return on investment can turn that much quicker. So instead of those 200 hours of splice work, now you can start selling circuits and gaining revenue 3, 4, 5 weeks earlier compared to that. And then just the overall ease of deployment as well. So now you're going to need less splicers, which are normally the more highly skilled technician. So again, more savings. So there's multiple reasons why this savings overall impacts a lot of different lines for anyone that's doing any kind of fiber deployment.
What are some of the most interesting places where FlexNAP's being used today?
It's rather interesting, the places we've done these. So we've actually done most recently a little island. I'm trying to get my directions here. Northwest of Kennebunkport, Maine, Sebago Lake. There's an island there that they've deployed the FlexNAP around the island there. We've done this deployment in Kingman, Arizona. I was out there 4 or 5 months ago, out in the desert, and we were literally taking these reels over barbed wire fences to place it on the pole lines out through the desert, through the houses out there. We have a trial coming up here probably in about 6-8 weeks in Fairbanks, Alaska. That's next. I'm hoping to be there and out probably before November, before it's 3 hours of darkness and a lot of snow. But but that's going to be, this can deploy anywhere. And it's been everywhere all the way through my old territory up in the northeast of the United States. We've gone all the way up towards the border in Plattsburgh, right just south of Montreal. We've done it all through Florida, Georgia. It can go anywhere. That's the best part.
Now, has it evolved since the way you originally conceived it?
Oh, it's amazing. So when we first started doing this, it was all loose tube originally, because that was, as Verizon, according to the collaboration together, that's what Verizon was. Splicing was loose tube. And this has now evolved into now ribbons. At the time, if you picture a normal distribution area, you'll have your main backbone cable and your side streets might have terminals. At the time, we would splice in to the FlexNAP cable and splice tails out to these terminals. Now we have what's called a reverse tether, where now your laterals are also plug and play. So you're not even splicing for side streets anymore. We have the option of, obviously if it's loose tube, we can go to a single fiber tether if you need it, and a multi-fiber tether, depending on the density at each terminal location. We've even gone to the reels themselves that the FlexNAP goes on. Obviously, we have the 72-inch reels, the large metal ones, but we've also gone to composite reels. So you can have 4,000 or 5,000 feet up, say, a 96 fiber, and two technicians can easily pick it up, put it in the back of a pickup truck. And then, of course, the entire Evolve platform with our terminals have gotten much smaller. The drops have gotten smaller. Over the last 20 years, it's been remarkable improvements to make it easier for the technicians.
I'd love to drill in on that a little bit. How has it changed the technician's job and perhaps broadened access to this, the jobs created by the fiber deployment across the U.S.?
Every time I show this to a new group of technicians, there's always what I'll call an anxiousness, because they're used to placing fiber. And then they'll see this new structures on this cable, because our splice point is a polyethylene mold on the cable, which is very flexible. Still has the same bend radius and everything else. The tether tails are on there. There's always that anxiety. So the first time, it's like they're handling it with little kid gloves. And they're very, very concerned. And it brings a smile to my face every time I see the line crew out there doing this. But as they get used to this, it just flows. And even the simple questions, like as they're placing this, the line crew are asking, can I try plugging in the terminal? Yes, go do it. And this ease, this comfort with all this here. And again, just the simple fact that now you can have more line crew than you need as splicers. And your line crew can just go out and do this DA, this DA, this DA, and that splicer just comes in right behind them and does the work. It's a lot easier overall to plan this. For like a project management stat, like what they do with this and how they schedule everything, it's a lot cleaner this way.
And does it allow you to draw from a more inclusive talent pool at the end of the day?
Oh, most definitely. So honestly, if anyone listening to this, they're going to have a natural impression in their head when you say the word technician. And it's typical. It's this illusion of very complicated work and a lot of physical strength and everything else that you have here. But it is an illusion. And with the ability to take this FlexNAP cable and make it smaller and pre-connectorization, those issues are gone. So this is really opening up the door for training. And obviously most companies are out there right now, they have these initiatives that they want to increase more diverse audiences. They want to go to younger audiences. They want to have this in college age and even the vocational schools and high school. And it's absolutely incredible because now you're not looking at a very long apprenticeship or even college loans. Now you have this opportunity for a much more diverse group of people that can come out here and do this work. And honestly, it's a wonderful career. This is not going to go away anytime soon, fiber deployment. So this is a wonderful opportunity for them to start fresh in a good career that honestly we're trying to make easier for everybody.
I was going to ask you about that. How much more do we need to do in the US? I understand in the rural areas, we have quite a bit more to do.
It's interesting. And the numbers I see, what I see right now, about every 2.5, 3 years, we are seeing bandwidth consumption double. It's an amazing stat. And this will accelerate because that is just what I'll call the human consumption. This is not data centers. This is not Internet of Things and smart cities. This is just data consumption at the house or the business, along those lines there. So if you picture this overall consumption of bandwidth will not be capable on anything that we currently deploy, like copper or even the HFC networks, the hybrids of the coax and the fiber. You need to go to fiber. Fiber right now, we truly do not know the maximum throughput on a piece of glass on the fiber. We test it all the time and we're hitting new records all the time, but we really don't know. So it will be pushed. And honestly, like I said, for the alternatives out there, for other mediums for transport, fiber is going to be your best option here. This is going to be necessary deployment probably for quite a while, if I was to guess.
Now, as you're trying to continue to innovate around this and push the cutting edge, how important is the role of talent and collaboration and finding the right talent and all of that?
It's so vital. And I've said this to a few of our customers. You can't drive innovation with a marketing pitch. You can't. You have to have what I'll consider like purposeful products. You have to have a knowledgeable base of people that can work with what exists, what problems are they being presented with, and the solutions they can come up with here. The employee is always the most vital piece of any company here. And Corning has some absolutely brilliant and talented people here. And that knowledge that we have, that we come to the customers with, it truly does instill the confidence, because we do a lot of collaboration with our customers just for that reason, because everyone has a different, what I'll call a problem statement that they want to solve. And we're fortunate that we have some of the best talent out there that can go out there, work with the customers for their individual builds.
Well, Kevin, this has been such a great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Well, it was absolutely wonderful. I'm glad I had the chance to meet you and to discuss everything that we've done at Corning, because I do have some pride in what we've done here.
That's a remarkable story, and the impact is still growing by the day. Before I let you go, I've got a quick few final questions here to ask you if you're ready. Kind of rapid fire.
Sure.
Is there a new innovation or an up-and-coming company or even a person that you've come across that you think could really change the future?
So aside from everything we've just discussed, obviously, one of the pieces, and it's going to sound cliche, but at Corning, we have a very extensive internship and what we call Bright program, so the newly graduated students. And I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of them. And I've explained how I started with the FlexNAP in 2004 and everything else. And everything that I started, now I'm seeing these different approaches and different world viewpoints of how fiber can be consumed and how it can be deployed and different ways they're making it better. And it's incredible to see how they are taking what I started 30 years ago almost, and they're just going to run with this here and keep going for all of us.
So you've got that great perspective looking back almost 30 years. If you now look ahead 30 years, where do you see the world?
I'm not going to recognize it. I completely admit that. But as you picture, like I was mentioning with the bandwidth consumption, this will roll into, like I said, cities and just life in general. Your restaurants, your shops, your parking downtown, all these different pieces will become much more integrated, and ease of use will occur based upon the deployment of the fiber and the overall bandwidth that's going to be out there to be utilized by all of us here. Again, even we're still talking now about self-driving cars and automation, long haul. I see it in the harbors, where a lot of that now is becoming automated as well. It's going to make life a lot easier for us in the next 20 to 30 years, definitely.
Outstanding. Perhaps ending here on a personal note, when you face challenges, as I'm sure you've seen a few along this journey, what keeps you motivated and pushing forward?
So growing up, and like I said, I mentioned I have a mathematics degree. My degree is actually mathematics secondary ed. I love teaching people. I've always enjoyed that, being able to hand off my knowledge and have somebody run with it. And that is what I love now, the ability that I have where I am, I'll say, let loose with the emerging companies that are out there that are starting to deploy fiber. And I'm doing engineering 101 with them, and I'm showing them how to place the cable and how to design it. That's what drives me. I love still being able to do 35 years after my degree. I still love helping people to learn how to do things.
On that very positive note, thanks again. What a great story, and looking forward to that next 30 years, even if it is unrecognizable.
Oh, yes, definitely. I cannot wait for this to keep coming.
And that wraps up another episode of Resetting Tomorrow. A huge thank you to Kevin Baker for joining us today and sharing the fascinating journey of the Corning FlexNAP fiber optic cable system. His insights into innovation, rural connectivity, and the importance of collaboration have been inspiring. To our wonderful audience, thank you for tuning in and supporting the show. If you've enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and leave a comment on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us bring you more engaging and informative content. And remember, if you're looking for expert talent or are an expert yourself seeking new opportunities, head over to set.kellyservices.us. Whether you're pushing the boundaries of innovation or exploring new career paths, we're here to help. Stay curious, stay inspired, and keep resetting tomorrow. This is Hugo Malan signing off. See you next time.
This podcast was produced in partnership with Amaze Media Lab.